Hey now, we are getting over, and I am the Silver King, Adam Silverstein, here to lead you through these hard times. With episode 890 of your favorite professional wrestling podcast. That's right, Getting Over is back once again, and it is Thursday, so you know exactly what that means. We are here to break down everything that happened over the last week across NXT and AEW. We will also be sprinkling in a little AAA from the last week as well. No significant WWE section to open today's program. For the first time in a long time, we're actually going to give you what seems like it's going to be a shorter edition of the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. But as we get into today's show, allow the Silver King off the top to remind you that this program
is all about Defy.
So head over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify, leave a 5-star rating. On Apple, take a little extra time, leave a 5-star written review. If you do, we will read it live right here on the show. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Getting Overcast. On Twitter and Blue Sky, you get episode drops, news, analysis, highlights. You can hit the link in our profiles over there. Join our free Slack channel. Subscribe to the podcast. Also on YouTube, if you follow us there, you can listen to the program. You can watch full-length video interviews as well across the board. Make sure you find us on social media at Getting Overcast. We have a lot of stuff coming up here on Getting Over through the end of May. Luckily for the Silver King, to a degree at least, none of it's this week. No special events this weekend. We're able to just deliver NXT, like I said, a brief dip into AAA and AEW on this episode. Next week, we're going to have on Tuesday your WWE Saturday night's main event Ultimate Preview. Pretty crazy that's already happening. And then on Thursday, we'll talk NXT, but we'll also have your AEW Double or Nothing Ultimate Preview. And then the following week, we'll have the WWE Clash in Italy Ultimate Preview. Of course, there will also be instant analysis episodes for all of those special events. So plenty of performance-enhancing audio coming your way here at Getting Over. In terms of this week, just about 30, 45 more minutes. And that's what we're going to get started right now with a full breakdown of NXT. We will hit AEW in the second half of the program. There are always timestamps in the episode description, so you can skip around if you so choose, but I certainly hope you listen to the entire show. As far as NXT goes, the main takeaway from the show this week is that this brand just, I don't know, man, it continues to deliver whenever its back is up against a wall. Short build for a PLE? No problem. Here's a bunch of bangers. Unexpected main event injury? Cool. We'll figure it out. Entire roster gets raided by Paul Levesque? Give us 3 weeks. We'll be okay. Like, no one is suggesting that NXT is as talented right now as it was a few months ago, but the last 2 episodes of TV, particularly this week, were so ridiculously smooth. They accomplished a ton, set up a bunch of stuff for the future. There was never a moment in the 2 hours on Tuesday night where you were looking at your watch being like, all right, how much longer do we have to go here? This was as complete an episode of wrestling TV as we've gotten from any company or brand in 2026. No surprise, the women opened and closed the show. Who knows? Maybe WWE will let them do that at a premium live event too. All right, let's get to everything that happened on TV. NARAKU, or NARAKU, I'm not yet sure which pronunciation is correct, fought Lince Dorado. We're going to say NARAKU for now. His entrance is tremendous. Graphics, music, smoke, all of it. New Japan was called out at the opening bell. It was a relatively formulaic match with Dorado doing his best to bump for the debutante. NARAKU hit 2 fisherman suplexes and Everything is Evil, his STO finisher, which is now called Enter the Abyss. Abyss, again, is another definition for NARAKU. For the win, he called himself Pure Evil after the bell, which should be his moniker, like the slogan Seth frickin' Rollins, the American Nightmare, Cody Rhodes, NARAKU, Pure Evil. Just makes a lot of sense. Fine debut, nothing to write home about. Mason Rook met Robert Stone in the ring to sign his NXT contract. There was nothing special about his entrance, very generic rock, a little strange, I think, in terms of an introduction. Rook got some frosted tips on his hair. He still looks like he drives a Subaru. The NXT crowd knew the assignment by doing his chant. Rook said that he's been turning heads all around the world, including the head of John Cena, who sees him. He called himself a flying human tank, saying he decided to join NXT because he's not just the best super heavyweight, he's the best any weight. And you know what? Great effing line, bro. Tony D'Angelo interrupted, crediting Rook for getting his attention but refusing to let him make a name for himself at his expense. In the middle of his promo, Cam Hendricks again attacked Tony D, so Mason jumped to the top rope, hit a moonsault ringside to take out 6 dudes. Then he went back into the ring, signed his contract, as fans chanted even louder than they did to open the segment. Similar to the Penta Ethan Page deal from Raw about 24 hours earlier, this was twice as much as it needed to be. And unless there is some alignment we don't know about, such as like an unannounced group or faction, shoving Hendricks into all of Rook's segments, it just remains ridiculous. One of them is an accomplished independent wrestler getting his first big break. The other is a force-fed NIL talent from LFG who has been called up way too soon. I don't understand why Mason cannot get even a single segment to himself through 3 appearances when he is the bigger deal, and Hendricks is probably the least notable person that has debuted on NXT, including Tristan Angels and Dorian Van Duh and EK Prosper and Sean Legacy. Like, Hendricks is below all of those guys, yet he's involved in the NXT title picture. That doesn't make any sense to me. The promo was solid from Rook, even if he was clearly nervous his first time out there. He definitely was emotional signing that contract. The look still needs to be honed. As we've said, facial hair is going to do this guy wonders. The presentation and name are perfectly fine. It'll be nice to see him wrestle a real match sooner than later, fingers crossed. Miles Bourne backstage told Tavian Heights that he got a tag team match against Rook and Hendricks set for next week. Heights was excited about the prospect of them teaming again, but when Bourne informed him that he was actually linking with D'Angelo for the match, Tavian copped a huge attitude, saying it must have been about them being champions and how Miles has not really given him the time of day since moving up the roster. Stone shook NARAKU's hand backstage, congratulating him on his debut victory. Rook and Hendricks then confronted him about not liking the tag team match, but Stone was basically like, yo, too bad. It never made much sense for Heights to get elevated all the way up to the NXT title, but sticking him in a friendly feud with Bourne for the North American Championship, that's the right call. And I presume that's what's going to happen on the back end of all of this. The tag team match, maybe he gets involved, interferes, whatever. Tavian turning heel would seriously refresh his character. It would also give Miles someone to bounce his like boring babyface gimmick off. Perhaps it'll give him some edge, just like the feud with Paige should have, but ultimately did not outside of one evening. Tatum Paxley and Lizzie Rain, a lot of L's in there, fought Zarya and Nikita Lyons. This opened the show with the faces shot out of a cannon and the teams strangely standing on the opposite sides of the ring based on their alignment. The faces were in the bottom right corner. The heels were in the top left corner. I don't know how something like that happens. Tatum jumped out of an F5 attempt, but Nikita avoided Cemetery Drive, countering with a great kick that was sold even better by Paxley, who spun herself like a top on her tippy toes. Zarya ultimately screwed Lyons by jumping off the ring apron to avoid her late tag. Tatum took advantage with her flip-over kick before Lizzie landed Thunderstruck for the win. Perhaps I missed it. I did not notice a particular moment in the match that caused Zarya to do that, so she basically punted a match. The heels were in the process of winning for no good reason. Now, I presume the explanation that we're supposed to understand is that Zarya didn't want to partner in the first place and didn't want to be involved in a tag team match, but I would have liked to have seen her show hesitancy throughout, selling that multiple times, and then using that as the finish. Still a bright spot for Tatum and Lizzie, who worked incredibly well together. And Nikita, shockingly, she still has the arrow pointing up. Her work in Evolve and in the gym, it is paying off, and she deserves a ton of credit for truly stepping up her game. We need to see consistency, longer wrestling matches. I want to see her promo be less, I hate using this word, cringe. I find her very cringe. If they can get past that, they may have something with Nikita Lyons. They might. Tatum and Lizzie were buzzing backstage about their victory. Paxley decided she wanted to get back to giving opportunities to wrestlers who deserve them, so she offered Rain a title match next week. Shiloh Hill literally flew into the picture, reminding that he's still trying to scrounge up details on Tristan Angels. Lizzie obviously knew him from England, so it seemed like she might help him with his research. Angels then interrupted, saying he'll prove himself in a debut match next week. A mixed tag team match between these four. It makes too much sense, even if Rain is technically on the face side. But going with Tatum versus Lizzie next week, surely with a Zarya interference, that's going to be a fun match. It should continue showcasing Rain in her debut month. These four have all been highlights of NXT the last couple of weeks. Tatum longer than that, obviously. But the Tatum and Lizzie pairing is awesome. Having Shiloh with them, I don't think you need to make them a group. but just friends who help each other backstage, that trio, I mean, it's super entertaining television. The culling, speaking of the opposite of entertaining television, they met in their den, crediting Izzy Dame for providing them with a clear path due to her attention to detail. She gave Sean Spears a side eye at one point during the conversation, then told Nico Vance to hang back so she could say just one sentence to him. Nothing against any of these three. I just don't believe this is working anymore. It's probably good I'm saying that now because it seems like a split might be happening sooner than later. The gist of this, though, was Izzy was focused on Lola Vice and the women's title. But again, like, Izzy has her own issues, like cannot cut a promo, incredibly long-winded. You know, Sean Spears is not supposed to be anything special. He's just supposed to help other people progress, and that's seemingly what he's doing with Nico Vance. Nico seems to have talent, but he just hasn't really been able to show it on NXT. Kendal Grey fought Kalani Jordan. Kendall backstage promised Ren Sinclair that she'd get revenge for Lonnie injuring her. Ren was hesitant to join her ringside because she didn't want them to end up like Zaruka, but Grey reassured her. Vice then came in, and it got heated between them, as per usual, with Kendall threatening for the future. This was appropriately the main event. Grey hit a standing frog splash ringside as these two put their work boots on for this match. After the break, Kendall hit 3 cross suplexes before Lonnie entered with a double jump forearm and a really well-executed powerbomb. Grey prevented one of a kind with a catch ankle lock that she maintained through multiple escape attempts. Lonnie looked to start a second wind, only to get caught running with a snap power slam. Jordan then took Grey off the top rope with a Spanish fly as Izzy attacked Lola backstage. They brawled into the arena, distracting the competitors, running over Sinclair's injured ankle from behind like she took friendly fire from an NFL offensive lineman. That allowed Lonnie to trip Kendall on the ropes and hit one of a kind for the win. Grey checked her out after the bell, shoving Vice, who was trying to make good with them, so Izzy booted Lola's head off and stood tall to end the show. And basically, Ren's concern from earlier about her being ringside in one way or another being a distraction for Kendall, that ultimately came to pass. Lots to unpack here. The match was awesome. Rightful main event of the show. Continued proof that the women should be main eventing PLEs just as often as they do TV. The fact that it does not happen regularly on NXT is an absolute joke, and they've had multiple opportunities to do it already at the end of 2025 into 2026. I will digress. Kendall and Lonnie were shot out of a cannon at the bell. They never let up. It was one of Jordan's best matches from a progression standpoint. Grey continues to show exponential improvement every month she's with this company. Kendall has gotten most of the praise in the 48 hours since this match, but Lonnie was nearly as great bell to bell. You all know I can be a little bit critical of her. It's just because I think and I know that her ceiling is so much higher than she's showing. She still needs to get there from a character standpoint. In ring, she's almost ready. And that's why the character work is so frustrating. 4 stars, A-, even with the distraction finish. Almost a full A. More fluid between them than Io Sky and Sol Ruka 24 hours earlier. So what does that tell you about Sol? Izzy remains an eye-roll challenger for Lola, just considering she's coming off twice losing to Tatum at the lower title level. Plus, Lonnie beating Kendall here should probably make her the number 1 contender, and she's actually earned it. The positive news is that a full slate of challengers is being set up here. It will likely run through all 4 of them, potentially with a 4-way happening at some point before Vice drops the strap, presumably to Grey over the next couple of months. I could definitely see a situation, though, where it goes Lola to Izzy and then Kendall wins it off a heel. That would make a lot of sense, and it would be impressive for Kendall to take down a larger woman than just beat Lola. Callie Armstrong backstage said she's trying to keep her momentum going, but she wants to evaluate NXT more before she makes her next move. She talked about running through everyone in Evolve, but Kendall popped in correcting, considering Grey obviously beat her in Evolve for the championship. This was ahead of the aforementioned match. Natty was in the midst of a supposed interview for LFG when she got interrupted by Jada Parker, angry over being called soft last week. They had to get separated, with Jada saying she was trying to be respectful, but now she'll be waiting by her car. We never saw her car. This was one of Natty's more natural talking segments possibly ever. Unfortunately, this is all we got from them. Emily Agard got another on-assignment interview with Out the Mud, who were grilling at the NXT apartment compound in Orlando. Lucian Price showed a bunch of emotion, opening up about leading his family after his mother died at a young age. Meanwhile, the food on the table was getting ice cold, and Emily put ketchup on a hot dog. No! I mean, do we need to have a conversation?
No, don't like that.
Makes me question a ton about this woman. Price was proud watching his younger brother put over what OTM means to people. Bronco Nima then got props for being an artist who is smarter than he looks. There was more personality shown in this segment than their entire careers on television up until this point. As a viewer, this made you legitimately care about OTM and want to root for them going forward. Mission accomplished from that standpoint. Now it needs to work similarly in the ring, and you have to continue these personality segments through backstage interviews and promos and so on. That way they have developed into something that people want to care about, not just in NXT, but eventually on the main roster. Noam Dar fought Jackson Drake. Dar got something between a 2.9 and a 3.1 on a trap pinning combination. He avoided a German suplex with an armbar counter and kicked Drake in the gut when he tried to handspring. Micah Lockwood interfered late by preventing Noam from getting back in the ring, allowing Jackson to hit a pump knee and a 450 splash for the win. Dar had a great return match here. It looked like he never left the ring. Drake was obviously the right winner as the faction leader with a more prominent role on the brand right now. I would have liked a bit more from Lockwood during the match. She's been pretty nondescript over the last couple of weeks just as a heavy. Drake's ceiling is ridiculously high, though. If this guy can add weight and bulk up, you're talking about WWE's version of like Kyle Fletcher, except with a full character already at a young age and a promo game where he can say multiple things, not just pretty much one line. Dark State interrupted in the post-match, then literally had to wait 5 minutes to cut a promo. They were basically demanding a tag team title opportunity after beating Hank and Tank. The champions declined, saying that was not enough to earn them the opportunity, also pointing out that they took the titles from them in the first place, starting the interfaction issues. Cutler James informed the championship match was already agreed upon by Stone. Then he clarified that he and Osiris Griffin would not be challenging together. In fact, it would be Dion Lennox and Saquon Sugars who need to link up, get the job done, and solidify their faction, or else they will have to make some kind of change. There was a brief attack with Dark State standing tall and Micah catching Jackson to end it. Really clunky segment. No one who spoke during this did well, even if they have in prior opportunities. The match booking is logical, and putting the Lennox Sugars team together makes sense from the standpoint of needing to see whether Dark State can work together aside from the guys who are partnered up. It does sound like next week will be the official faction split, with them falling to Vanity Project and 3 of the 4 turning on either Lennox or Sugars. I hope it's Sugars who gets kicked out with a chance to go babyface, because he's the cream of the crop and he has the highest ceiling by far out of this group. You've seen it over the last couple of weeks. And lastly, Sean Legacy, EK Prosper, and Tate Wilder fought Birthright. The faces commiserated backstage with Dorian Vandeux, who said he's 1 week away from being cleared. Charlie Dempsey wrestled here despite last week it sounding like he was back in England for a while. Birthright flexed some teamwork with a really nice swanton bomb off the apron by Uriah Connors. Wilder got a hot tag, shoving his opponents into a combination neckbreaker DDT. Prosper caught Connors with a tremendous spike tornado DDT. Dempsey took Wilder off the top rope with a double underhook superplex for a broken fall. Connors then murked Prosper with an apron Death Valley driver. Wilder put Connors down with a fireman's carry cutter and a double tope con hero as Legacy waited on the apron, begging for a tag that was purposefully ignored as Wilder landed a frog splash on Dempsey for a false finish. He again refused to tag, but this time he missed a moonsault and got murked with Lighten Up, a double sidekick to the face. This was an overzealous rookie ball hog thinking he can win a match against a faction on his own. That's a fun, unexpected angle they're taking. It's been a while since I've seen that done so obviously. It could even create some fun match combinations between the group of neophytes who are all jockeying for a position. On top of that, Birthright looked great with Dempsey as the third instead of Lexus King, and as a faction, they badly needed that win for legitimacy. This was the second best match of the night outside of Kendall and Lonnie. It was in the B plus range. Wilder later found Stone backstage saying he doesn't want to rest. He's ready to go for another match next week. Keanu Carver stormed in, saying he's sick of being forced to talk to people, so Stone just put them in a match. So Keanu Carver, okay, all rough and gruff on the exterior, turning over tables, attacking Booker T. He's a smarter than you think introvert. I'm being facetious a bit, but I mean, that'd be pretty funny if they went in that direction. We'll find out what's happening with Carver next week. Anyway, that wraps up everything that happened in NXT. Like I said, every single segment on the show in one way or another mattered, explained something, advanced a story forward. And that's precisely what they need to be doing right now. The show was filled to the brim. And like I said, also, the 2 hours just completely flew by. So as an episode of TV, it gets an A for the week, even though we don't normally grade shows. I'm just trying to explain how perfect it was from a construction standpoint. Now, we have a lot more to cover here on the show. Before we get to it, Silver King does need to remind you here at Getting Over,
I happen to love the number 5.
and I hope you do as well. $5 a month, $50 for the entire year. you can become an official Getting Overhead. Just visit buymeacoffee.com/gettingover, sign up. You'll get bonus audio, the fastest 5 minutes in professional wrestling, instant reactions to every major show, and exclusive news analysis posts every week. Please support us as we continue delivering performance-enhancing audio into your ear holes. Help us keep the lights on. Get some additional content. buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. Quickly, before we get over to AEW, let's talk this week's AAA episode. We had La Catalina against Jessie Jackson. This was Catalina's debut match. Flammer watched from ringside. Catalina kissed Maricela Pena, I guess out of respect or something. The match was fine. She had a nice missile dropkick and Bazaiku knee. Jessie was game with a strong charging Meteora. Catalina ultimately hit Wasteland and a twisting basic splash to get the win. Solid showing by both of them. Jessie probably earned herself more work in AAA. Catalina definitely had a lot of fan support. Las Toxicas attacked and beat down Catalina after the bell, so Bayley surprised by coming to the rescue alongside Lola Vice. Legitimate, thunderous response and loud chants for Bayley. They all danced after the bell. Bayley looked like she was having a blast. She also made sure Catalina was the center of attention. Surely a trios match is coming on the back end here. Psycho Clown and Pagano had their planned confrontation in the main event after months of consternation, with Pagano accused of betraying and even attacking possibly his own faction. Psycho admitted that he doesn't have the answers, saying he just wants the truth, and all signs point to the party at fault being one of them. Pagano took offense to the accusation, claimed he would never turn his back on his family, and offered a hug that Psycho refused. As Psycho walked away, Pagano said the truth would come out, and he would find out that Pagano was never on the wrong side. War Raiders attacked Psycho from behind on the stage, but Pagano came to his aid. Psycho put a hand on his shoulder to say thank you, but then he pushed it away. This was probably the most disappointing AAA segment since they have been running the weekly shows because nothing happened. The storyline didn't develop. Each guy said publicly what they've been yelling at each other privately, quote unquote, for the last month. So nothing advanced, and it just felt like a waste of time watching the segment. It seemed like something would pop off leading to a match later this month, but no, it was nothing. So I guess we're going to get a tag team match against the War Raiders. Maybe they win those titles and then it just goes on from there. That's when they split. I'm just really confused about where that's going. Octagon Jr. fought Lince Dorado and Cruz del Toro in a triple threat match. Typical fun lucha stuff here. Dorado is particularly enjoyable, just the way he has so many cat-adjacent mannerisms, licking his paws, curling into a ball when he gets hurt. He even has a move called Cat Scratch Fever. He really works the gimmick. Del Toro landed coast to coast, but Dorado broke the fall with a perfect shooting star press before beating Cruz with a brainbuster. Nice to see him get a dub. I assumed it would be Octagon, but he got this win, and then he went ahead and wrestled in NXT and lost to Mason Rook. So, interesting that they did it that way. And lastly, Dorian Roldan came across Chessman, who was also angling for the general manager job. So he became another contender along with Roldan and JBL, though it seems obvious that Pena will ultimately choose someone who is not part of the buildup, who's a surprise to a degree. And I believe she's mostly a babyface character, so it wouldn't necessarily make sense for her to choose any of them. The question is, who is she going to pick, and what exactly is their role going to be? Is it as simple as Rey Mysterio? Might they choose Penta in a non-wrestling general manager dual role? Or is there someone from the AAA past that's kind of waiting in the wings that's going to really, make people excited to get the call? We, of course, will have to find out in the future. So that wraps up AAA this week. Not as great of an episode as we normally get, but still watchable, and you definitely need to see it if you are watching weekly just to keep up with what's going on. All right, let's move over to AEW. Now, I have awful luck with AEW's touring schedule. They basically only visit my part of Florida when I'm either out of town or otherwise occupied and unable to attend their shows. On Saturday, AEW went to the SoFi Center, the home of Tiger Woods' TGL Indoor Golf League, and easily within driving distance from my home, so I definitely would have been there. Unfortunately, I was not only at a bar mitzvah, I would not have gone as it was the same time as Backlash. But considering I've been to that venue twice before, I was more interested than usual to see how this would work because the ring was confined to a portion of the venue that did not have much seating, forcing the majority of fans to sit far away from the action. Unfortunately, they could not atone for that. And while the crowd had less than 1,000 people, it looked even smaller because only about 50 people were allowed to stand around the ring. They did run the main event as no countout. That way Darby Allin and Pac could wrestle on the golfing surface where they chip, putt, and operate out of the sand trap. Overall, visually, Fairway to Hell looked cool and different as well, despite the aforementioned issues. Production was super wonky at multiple points too, which despite the unique venue AEW should not be having those types of production issues 6-7 years into its existence. One other note from the start of Dynamite, something AEW does well, even if it's unfortunately Tony Schiavone who does it, they make the start of their shows feel energetic and exciting. Playing the music, the pyro, the announcer screaming at you, the crowd cheering. It's what WWE used to do before the calm arena entrances without any energy or excitement. I've said this before. It is so weird that even when they do the walk into arena deals, WWE doesn't transition into someone on commentary, ideally like Corey Graves and Wade Barrett, going crazy at the start of the show, hitting the pyro, everyone going nuts. They did the pyro one time recently and the show was better for it, but it really should be every week on Raw and SmackDown. Like, I don't know how much one additional set of pyro costs, but let's make believe it's $10,000. And I'm guessing it's less than that, but let's say it's 10 grand. Are you telling me $20,000 a week is not worth your product being more energetic and exciting? You got to believe it is. So that's where I stand. Overall, from a match relevancy standpoint, AEW amazingly went 0 for 5 on Collision, including Dynamite. They went 2 for 10. So 20% of the matches this week were storyline relevant. And the two that were relevant were relatively thin. And they were also bottom card stuff that we'll talk about much later in our breakdown of AEW. Now, that said, there were 2 AEW title matches this week, one on Collision and one on Dynamite, but both challengers just came out of nowhere without storylines, and they just had matches, and they're great matches. But again, why you got to get me invested in your product. And this is the problem that remains with AEW. So let's go ahead and break it all down. So on Collision, the title was on the line. Darby Allin defending against Pac. Darby immediately went to the golf green, daring Pac to meet him there to start the match. The referee seemed to call for the bell, but it never rang. Allin did a code red into the sand trap, followed by a running dropkick for a full flip sell from Pac into the same area. Awesome spots. The visuals were great. Pac responded in kind, knocked Darby out in the brutalizer, but it didn't count because they weren't in the ring. This was minutes into the match, by the way. Allin avoided a shooting star press, with Pac crashing into a table. He still quickly escaped a Scorpion Deathlock chaser. They did a tombstone pile driver into the steel steps. That was problematic for 2 reasons. First, Darby's head did not come even a foot from the metal. Second, Pac didn't even bother trying to pin him in the ring. It was a setup to carry his dead body to the top of the set so Pac could push him off and down through 4 stacked tables. This was simultaneously safer than the Sol Ruca Zarya spot because Darby was able to see where he was going, and it was more dangerous because it was a much longer drop, and he completely missed 1 stack of tables, overshooting it, taking a seriously nasty bump. His body was convulsing as Pac grabbed him, carried him to the ring for a 2 count. A 2 count. The guy took a mankind bump and kicked out at 2. So how does the match end? Well, despite it being no count out and seemingly no disqualification, the Death Riders distracted the referee to hand Pac the belt. Darby sprang right up like nothing happened to him, hit a low blow, a belt shot, and 1 coffin drop to retain. The clear positive about this match is that it made use of the facility incredibly well. They had great chemistry. Both are tremendous in-ring workers willing to take big bumps. Unfortunately, the table spot was seriously contrived. There was some real dumb logic with the heels. It did continue Darby's momentum in his title reign. We'll talk more about that in a moment. 4 stars, A-. Over on Dynamite, we had Darby against Konosuke Takeshita. Don Callis announced on Collision that Kazuchika Okada had to return to Japan unexpectedly, and as such, Takeshita was replacing him. Okada, who did nothing to earn the match as a random challenger, got replaced by Takeshita, who did nothing to earn the match as another random challenger. As I said last week, conceptually, the idea of Darby establishing himself as a champion with a ton of great matches and victories, that works, considering the reign we think is going to be short with MJF winning the title back. However, in execution, it has literally been one random match after another with nearly zero storytelling. Primary champions should not be having open challenges. You want to do that for the TNT title, the Continental Championship, the United States Championship, the Intercontinental Championship. Excuse me, I got AEW and WWE all messed up trying to remember which was which. You want to do it for those titles? Go for it. It should not be happening with the WWE title, the World Heavyweight Championship, and the AEW Championship. It just shouldn't. You need to earn world title matches.
It's about nothing.
No story?
No, forget the story.
You gotta have a story.
Who says you gotta have a story?
On Dynamite, MJF ignored a backstage interview question about putting his hair on the line as he was told Darby would never let him challenge for the title if he did not agree to the stipulation. Then he walked past about a dozen bald people, including referees, agents, wrestlers, and random extras. Even the heels, Tommaso Ciampa and Ricochet, taunted him. This was a funny segment, well-framed comedy, even if the concept around all of this remains stupid. On top of that, Allin should not be able to prevent a wrestler from earning a title match. MJF could easily avoid the stipulation by, entering and winning the Owen Hart tournament. Just as one example, he later approached Takeshita and Callis, putting over the former and suggesting a rematch for the AEW title if he beats Darby and then Okada. Another funny bald moment here with MJF and Callis. He also gave him the Dynamite Diamond Ring as a weapon to use in the match, which did not make a shred of sense to me. You know why? Because Callis has his own weapon, the neon screwdriver. So why does he need the Dynamite Diamond Ring? Andrade El Idolo then interrupted, whipped his hair around, and said nothing besides his one line. Tensions with him and MJF, despite both of them being heels, they continue to grow, just waiting for Andrade to leave this faction, turn face, and for this to make sense. So, okay, on to the match. Insane early spot with Darby eating a blue thunderbomb off the apron to the ringside area. That had to hurt. Takeshita later added a cradle tombstone piledriver and wheelbarrow German suplex. Then he did an avalanche German suplex that looked incredible, but was also incredibly dangerous. Even if they did turn properly, which they did, it was super close to not being the case. El Clone runs out, distracts so Callis can hand over the ring. Takeshita declines it. Then he stood up immediately after eating an avalanche code red. Darby did a ringside coffin drop and scorpion death drop on the steel steps and another ringside coffin drop. Then Takeshita blocked the coffin drop back inside, got a rope break on a scorpion deathlock, and ate 2 more coffin drops to lose. Exceptional match, probably the best one during the reign to this point. I am going 4.5 stars and an A. Great drama, intensity. The match reached a crescendo and it paid it off. Takeshita was allowed to look strong coming out of it, which was important considering, he's challenging Okada for the international title, but now he just lost to Darby Allin, of all people. That is why neither of them should have been in this match in the first place. But the work was great. Darby got busted open hard way in the mouth during the bout as well. This probably should have ended the show. Instead, they did almost an improv contract signing with Darby daring MJF to come out and put his hair on the line. MJF said once he wins the title back, Darby has as great of a chance of becoming a 2-time champion as Hangman Page does, challenging for it again in the future. MJF called him a glorified stuntman, saying Allen's legacy will be that he got 15 minutes of fame but never actually made it. He was just a little prick who got lucky, too reckless and stupid to stay on top. The whole time this is happening, Darby is basically drooling blood out of his mouth. He said he doesn't care about legacy, just making him a bald-headed bitch. So MJF signed, then form tackled Darby, knocked him out of the ring, knocked him out with his ring, and then held the title high to end the show before Kevin Knight saved Allin from eating an avalanche tombstone piledriver. This was the type of promo that you want a heel to cut if you're going to have the babyface win and retain the title. MJF winning would basically prove right everything he said about Darby. The smart move, if MJF is going to win, was having him cut the promo and get the best of Darby 2 weeks out this week, not on the go-home show. So it's not the most fresh item in the minds of fans going into the show. Oh, he's only going to be a stuntman with 15 minutes of fame. If that's what your thought going into the match and he loses, man, he really looks like shit. But doing it 2 weeks ahead, which is what they did here, it's the right move. It was a killer line too. You just basically want to make sure that Darby does not get buried in defeat, even if it's a hotly contested match. Great segment, though. MJF has done well getting away from his trite promos, bringing more unique lines recently. That was a major problem during his last stretch, but this newest stretch, he's been cutting much better promos. The way they got to the hair part of the stipulation, remains completely ridiculous, but it does have the fans amped up wanting to see MJF get shaved. On Dynamite, for some reason, Daniel Garcia again led the Death Riders segment, which showed Will Ospreay bent over, resting his head and tiptoes while Jon Moxley taught him a submission hold, and the rest of the riders played handball on a roof. Ospreay said it's the best his neck has felt in forever. Perhaps Mox should be moonlighting as AEW's physical therapist. Mox then rambled about a bunch of stuff, telling Ospreay not to worry about protecting himself in the ring. As this continues, there remains no explanation as to why Mox is so motivated to help Ospreay become a beast physically and mentally when he's previously tried to end his life, and he continues to go for the spot that Will wants, the top of the company, AEW champion. It's like AEW went straight to the plot and completely skipped over the exposition, which is how you develop a meaningful plot. On Dynamite, Ospreay needed 16 minutes to beat Ace Austin, a guy who has lost 5 straight singles matches before this. A match where Ospreay was supposed to be a killer, not giving anything to his opponent. It took him 16 minutes. There was no reason for this match. Yes, There's a thin feud between the Rioters and Bang Bang Gang, but Ospreay is not part of the Rioters and has no problem with the other babyfaces. Now, if AEW, as part of one of the Ospreay segments, had Mox let him know, hey, it's great that you're cleared. I scheduled you a match against an opponent of my choosing. Okay, I would have bought into that. But no, that would require storytelling effort. Third best AEW match of the week still. Ospreay won with an armbar rather than his normal finish, showing that the Rioters' training is paying off or something. But he wasn't a killer. He didn't leave it locked in after the bell. He just let it go. We'll get more on Ospreay in a bit. On Collision, the national championship was on the line. Mark Davis beat Jack Perry to win the title in a relatively surprising move. Ricochet cost Perry the strap with a golf club to the back, despite Davis being part of Cal's family, which has 100 members who could have helped exactly the same way. This felt like a reward for Davis, and it's likely a transitional reign, but it's also firmly established this as the least valuable of the 5 men's singles titles, even if we already knew that was the case. You'll remember Davis didn't even earn the opportunity individually. There was no build. He was just plucked as a member of the Callis family to get a title opportunity. After the loss, Perry decided he would join Chris Jericho and Hurt Syndicate against the demand for Stadium Stampede. Sensible, given Ricochet cost him the title. But then, literally out of nowhere, he somehow adds, oh yeah, it's not just me joining the team. The Elite are going to be on the team too. And then, after that, Callis said he'd choose some family members to join the match. Then on Dynamite, the Dogs decided to fight because the Bucks were in the match. This is literally just throwing people together for the sake of increasing the field. There's a small tie in the middle, but it's now a 14-man match with absolutely nothing on the line. And the people the feud is about are almost secondary to the match now. On Dynamite, Cope and Cage, Orange Cassidy, and the Young Bucks beat FTR, Ciampa, and the Dogs to open the show, a random 10-man party match involving a variety of people from different feuds, most of whom have wrestled in different combinations across the last couple of weeks. This might have been the peak of AEW's inability to handle tag team match rules. At one point, there were 10 people all wrestling simultaneously with the referee not doing shit. Seriously, if you watch this match and just keep your eyes on Rick Knox, you'll lose your damn mind. Cope ate a botched shatter machine, then joined the Bucks for Super Kick Party and speared Clark Connors to win. The Dogs are such losers. Cage got busted open hard way on his head. Fun opening match, but completely worthless in the grand scheme. The Owen Hart tournament was announced with the finals set for Forbidden Door. AEW got this right in 2022 when they had 14 competitors in each bracket. Now that's down to 8, and it leaves a lot to be desired. Both brackets left me shaking my head. First of all, there are going to be 3 quarterfinal matches held at Double or Nothing. Not final matches, not semifinals, quarterfinal opening round matches on pay-per-view. In other words, excused random match bookings without storyline. Now, I say that, but the first one, Ospreay against Samoa Joe, they've been working on, even if the concept behind it is nonsensical. After Ospreay's aforementioned match, Joe confronted him from the stage, saying Will has been ignoring his random promos the last couple of weeks, but he was happy that they happened to get matched up in the tournament. How convenient, right, Joe? The Ops went to attack, but the Writers came out to get Ospreay's back. So the heels, helping a babyface for no reason while feuding with a variety of other babyfaces, are protecting their babyface from other heels. And they needed 6 people to counter 2 to 3 from the Ops. All right, back to the Owen. The other quarterfinal airing on Double or Nothing is Bandito against Swerve Strickland, which was similarly referenced on TV outside of the tournament, but it has no story. Swerve just decided he wants to fight Bandito. And now it's in the tournament. But okay, all 4 of those guys should be involved. The other 2 bouts are a rematch between Perry and Davis without the title on the line, somehow involved in an AEW title tournament, even though one is the national champion and the other lost that title. Mind-numbing. And then Claudio Castagnoli against Brody King, both of whom should definitely be in the tournament. So the presumption is Ospreay against Davis, and I guess Swerve and Brody rematching. Unless the idea is for Ospreay Claudio to be the final. But I'm not sure I see him going through Brody and Swerve in succession. The larger issue is not the names involved, it's the names not involved in the men's bracket, considering what's at stake. We'll come back and discuss the women's side in a moment, considering the women basically did not exist on television this week. On Collision, Mike Bailey beat a jobber in 2 minutes. Kevin Knight came out after the match saying he wanted to make it to the top together with him. We know that. You guys are partners. Bailey then beat another jobber in 80 seconds on Dynamite. I assumed, okay, they're giving him wins because they want to create a reason for him to challenge Knight, except he's beating literal nobodies. But there was something worth far more criticism that happened in this match. And you may be assuming that Silver King is about to trash this jobber, whose name was Westbrook, singularly, for a horrendous botch, trying to do something of a springboard fashion by the ropes. Well, no, I am not going to criticize Westbrook.
No.
People make mistakes, and he made one. Shit happens. The person who deserves criticism here is Speedball, who completely buried this guy by hanging him out to dry, or I should say allowing Westbrook to hang himself out to dry, rather than running over to the guy to save the spot, help him in the ropes, take advantage in kayfabe by booting him out of the ring so he could reset, doing anything to help him. Speedball stood in the middle of the ring with his arms basically out, laughing at him. It was so unprofessional. And between him, the referee, and the people backstage, that's something that should be coached up and down. How to adjust in a situation like that. Shame. On Dynamite, the TNT title was on the line. Knight defended in an open challenge. For the first time in forever, AEW actually ran a real open challenge, and a returning Brian Cage got the call here. As such, I gave it relevancy credit. This is one of two matches that got relevancy credit. Cage looked like Billy Butcher from The Boys, and let's just say it would not be wrong to nickname him Triple HGH. They botched a Hurricanrana out of the corner, so Cage pulled Knight back atop the ropes from the canvas, all by his legs, so they could do the spot. Knight immediately hit an UFO to retain the title. Nice match between them. I felt like with the botch, perhaps they should have turned it into a regular powerbomb, because Cage did all the work to get him back, and then he still ate the offense anyway. There's no part of me that believes Knight should have lost, but at the same time, returning Cage this way and putting him right back as a Callis family jobber, that was a decision. Knight and Bailey had another in-ring segment after the bell. He called himself the TNT Championship, Knight did. Speedball said his guy is a future AEW champion. Knight said, hey, Mike, you're going to hold the title in AEW too someday. So Speedball turned around and said, you know what? I want an AEW championship match after Takeshita. So yeah, I was wrong. Speedball didn't get two jobber squashes to challenge Knight. He got two jobber squashes to challenge the AEW champion.
Are you fucking kidding me?
His victories since March are Rocky Romero, AR Fox, and two jobbers. And he lost a title eliminator to MJF in April. But now he's going to get a title match just because he wants one. This is what I was talking about earlier with Darby. Conceptually, the idea of him piling up successful defenses on a short reign, it's super smart. But not having the challengers actually earn their opportunities or create a storyline around any of them, it's completely ridiculous. Why couldn't Speedball have beaten legitimate opponents the last couple of weeks? Why are you putting him over jobbers and then giving him an AEW title match? Can you imagine if Drew McIntyre, since we're talking about a transitional champion, randomly gave title matches to The Miz, Rey Fenix, and Nathan Frazier for no reason whatsoever? People would lose their effing minds. On Dynamite, the conglomeration backstage had a segment where they all talked about having an ode tag team title match. Kyle O'Reilly wanting to fight Jon Moxley for the Continental Championship, considering his recent wins over him, that would make sense. Willow Nightingale saying a bunch of nothing because she has no direction or challengers as TBS champion. And Mark Briscoe returning to challenge Ciampa to a match that also has relevance, despite its extended delay. I don't even have an opinion. That's just what happened. On Collision, Divine Dominion beat a pair of jobbers who somehow received a title eliminator match. Women's wrestlers got 2 minutes on this show. Renee Paquette got more time on Saturday. They're doing a 5-minute challenge. Dominion is, I guess, so they can fight jobbers. On Dynamite, Hikaru Shida and Brawling Birds beat Triangle of Madness by disqualification after Tekla used her title in view of the referee. This was one of the two relevant matches all week, the other being an open challenge. This ended via DQ. Even this was relatively thin relevance-wise. It was just a backstage segment from the week prior that put Shida with the Birds. Shida watched as Tekla turned into a spider, turned back, and then ran right at her for a spear. Julia Hart missed at a referee. Willow, Mina Shirakawa, and Thunder Rosa randomly saved. And then, as this segment is petering out, almost on a whim, without any warning, and certainly without any build, AEW in a graphic announced a 4-way for Tekla's title at Double or Nothing with, get this, Jamie Hayter, Chris Statlander, and Shida as the challengers. So the three challengers are Stat and Shida, the former twice losing to Tekla already, the second time in a 2 out of 3 falls match. So she's been pinned by her 3 times. The latter, Shida, already losing a TBS title match in April and only having 2 singles matches in AEW's total since 2024. Both of them are currently operating as a team. They're getting a title match. And then Hayter, who lost a title match to Tekla exactly 1 month ago, she's getting another one. Giving Stat or Hayter another opportunity might have been okay if there was a storyline reason for it. Let's say one of them beat Sky Blue and Julia Hart in successive singles matches, or pin Tekla in a tag team match, such as this one that ended in a DQ. Nope. 0 effort, 0 reason. People who have recently lost title matches all getting another one out of nowhere for no reason. No effort to even set up a segment to make the match with all of them coming out to challenge. They just did a graphic on Dynamite.
I hate this. I hate this crap. Stop. Stop with the crap.
That is one big pile of shit.
Okay, so now the women's Owen. This thing is a shit show too. The first match is Persephone and Hazuki, both CMLL wrestlers. Persephone has a dual contract, but has made 2 appearances. She's also injured, so the match can't happen anytime soon. Then you have Mina, who keeps losing, against Athena, who is the ROH champion and rarely appears on AEW TV. When she does, she loses, despite holding a title for like 1,400 days. The third is Sky Blue, laughable, against Sari from Stardom, who has never wrestled in AEW and is also taking a full month off because she injured her neck. So that match is not happening anytime soon, even though I'm excited for Sari to get an opportunity in AEW. And then the fourth match is Willow, the TBS champion, against Alex Windsor, who has lost a half dozen singles title matches and is currently half of a tag team that is supposed to be going after those titles, despite each of them having undeserved women's championship matches and losses of late. So you have this entire roster of talent, even beyond Toni Storm and Mercedes Moné. They're out. But you have Hayter, more talented than Windsor in the same situation. Stat, Queen Aminata, Rosa, Shida, Rio, hell, Harley Cameron. None of them are in, but you're using 3 outside talents and an ROH woman. Now I get it. The final is going to happen at Forbidden Doors, so the idea is going to be an AEW wrestler against, either Persephone or Sari. And that's going to be the final, and maybe one of them wins, and then they get a title match. I understand what they're doing here, okay? But you have an 8-person field. 5 of them are your own wrestlers. Most of them don't even deserve the opportunity. And you're filling the other rest of the field with people who have never been on TV, don't deserve the opportunities, haven't done anything to be put in that position. Meanwhile, you're not even being consistent. Why isn't there a CMLL talent in the men's match? Why isn't there a New Japan talent in the men's Owen? It's only the women that get that? Why? That's the frustrating part, okay? Now, this would have stood out as even more ridiculous if it was not for the women's title booking that we just talked about, which is more absurd considering it's the top championship in the division and it's a pay-per-view match. But how about this? You want to know who the top woman in AEW is right now with Tony and Mercedes out? It's not Tekla. It's not Willow. It's not Stat. It's Renee Paquette. Renee got more time on screen on Collision than the women's wrestlers, and she got nearly as much time as they did on Dynamite. She certainly got more time than the combined title pictures of the 3 championships that the women have did, considering 0 challengers were actually built on TV. Renee made 7 appearances on Wednesday. The women got 10 total minutes to wrestle to a DQ finish and no additional time for promos, storytelling, anything on the show. Willow got 5 seconds during the conglomeration segment. I mean, that's what's happening in AEW right now. Look, the WWE tag team division, specifically on SmackDown, but across the board, it is the worst booked single division in major professional wrestling in the United States right now. The AEW women's division is a clear second. I mean, it may even be 1A and 1B right now. And the answer is not, oh, well, Tony and Mercedes are out. So you have tons of other women. Thekla was built up. You did a great job with that. And then you just murdered Stat and made her irrelevant and never set up another challenger. Now, maybe Persephone was supposed to be in that spot. I can understand that. Then take this other woman, what's her name, Hazuki? Or take, anyone else that I mentioned here and build them up as a challenger instead. But they're just giving away Hayter on TV, loser. What's her name? Windsor on TV, loser. Stat rematch, I think it was on TV. I'm forgetting. Maybe that was on pay-per-view. I apologize. But loser, So they're burning through some of these opponents. And now, let's just throw them all in one match together, even though they've done nothing since to deserve it. That is the state of the AEW Women's Division. All right, let's wrap up this edition of the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. I said a short episode. We're slightly over 45 minutes, but nevertheless, the shortest in a long time. On the way out, let me remind you, we will be back on Tuesday, somehow, with your WWE Saturday Night's Main Event Ultimate Preview. We'll be back next Thursday with your AEW Double or Nothing Ultimate Preview and a full breakdown of everything that happens in NXT. Of course, next weekend, we'll have the Saturday Night's Main Event and Double or Nothing Instant Analysis podcast. And then the week after that, it is WWE Clash in Italy week. So make sure you hit that subscribe button wherever you are listening right now to this performance-enhancing audio known as the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. Also, do not forget,
It's all about the fight.
head over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Leave a 5-star rating. On Apple, take a little extra time. Leave a 5-star written review if you do. I'll read it live right here on the show. Follow us on social media at Getting Overcast on Twitter and Blue Sky. You get episode drops, news, analysis, highlights. You can send in questions and comments for the show. The link in our profile lets you join our free Slack channel and follow us wherever you want to listen to the show. On YouTube, you can listen to it there, and you can watch full-length video interviews with WWE superstars and professional wrestlers. Make sure you follow us across the board at Getting Overcast. And please remember,
I happen to love the number 5.
hope you do as well. $5 a month, $50 for the entire year. You can become an official Getting Overhead. Just visit buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. Sign up. You'll get bonus audio, the fastest 5 minutes in professional wrestling, instant reactions to every major show, and exclusive news analysis posts every week. Please sign up. Support us financially. It's a free show. We love delivering this performance-enhancing audio into your earholes. All right, folks, that wraps up this edition of the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. This is the Silver King, Adam Silverstein, signing off and leaving you with just 3 final words. Bye for now.